I'm Kinsley. Me and my group of Carson, James, and Michael will present today to you Near Field Communications, or most commonly known as NFC. In today's time, technology has been a driving force in innovation and advancement. Technology has made it easier to farm, build cities, travel, and many other things. It has effectively brought together many countries, almost every country, and it helped create globalization all across the globe. And it made it easier for economies to grow and other companies to do great business and become the businesses we look at today. Through our technological advances, we have seen many technologies surface that have changed the world as we see it today. A great powerful technology that has been introduced to us is short-range wireless communications. Short-range wireless communications is, as the name describes, communications from a short range. Short range technology uses signals that travel within a few centimeters to several meters to exchange data or information. There are many types of short range wireless communications, but the most commonly known ones are Bluetooth and Wi Fi. Outside these two household name technologies, we have NFC, which is near field communications. It's described as an ultra short range technology. Near field communication, or commonly known as NFC, is a mainstream wireless technology. Much like Wi Fi and Bluetooth, it has essentially the same functions but covers a relatively smaller area. The main function for NFC is to form a contactless communication between two devices that are NFC compatible. If we're looking at the difference from Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and NFC uses a lower frequency, and the transmissions that NFC use are by magnetic field versus the electric field that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth uses. The magnetic field is a little less dominant in the near field connections industry, but it gets the job done for NFC. So now we will discuss the history of near field communication. Near field communication was earliest patent was from Sony and Ericsson in 2002, but before that there were many strikes of discoveries. The earliest discovery we can look at is Thomas Edison and his discovery of the radio, being that NFC uses RFD, radio frequency identification, in its technology. That is pointed to as one of the earliest discoveries of NFC. Though Edison did discover the radio, Charles Walton actually filed the first patent for the radio frequency identification in 1983. Now we are looking to explain NFC in greater details. We are here today to explain NFC and the impact it is having and the advancements it is making in technology. This presentation will begin to assess many topics of near-field communication and the technologies around it. We look to discuss the history of it, the development, standards, design, applications, and adaptation, as well as the many subtopics that follow.
Hi, my name is Carson Mortellaro, and I'm going to be doing the How It Works section of our presentation. There are two main ways NFC is used, that is passively and actively. A passive device can contain information that an active device can read. It's kind of like a sign. It only can be read. It can't receive any information, and it can't really read anything else. It just is, only purpose is to be read. It can't read anything and it can't receive anything. An active device can do everything a passive device can do. It can read and collect information, and it can also transfer information between other compatible devices. It can also make changes to passive tags, and it can also allows for two different active members to communicate with each other. The reason you would use a passive tag over an active tag is because like a passive device doesn't really require a power supply. An active device is more expensive as well. This is a little diagram to help kind of better understand what I was saying. So on the left here, you have an NFC active device, which is a phone, and you have an NFC tag, which is a passive device. These two can communicate with each other, but only on a one-way relationship. The NFC active device, which is the phone, can only receive information from the tag. Like, you can only send that way. It's a one-way transaction. When you look at the diagram on the right here, you can see that the phone, which is an active device, and the reader, which is an active device, can send information to each other. They communicate back to each other. It's not just a one-way relationship. Now we're going to move on to the NFC process. This process is the order of operations of everything, how everything works in harmony. This process is going to use both passive NFC tags and active forms of NFC, such as a phone. This process is going to be completed by using an RF field generated by the NFC devices. The RF stands for radio frequency. You can see that RFID and NFC are very similar, but they are different. The NFC process is going to have three main functions, three kind of like how they work. And this is going to be to first transfer power from the active device to the passive device. This is where I said that a passive device doesn't have its own power supply. So the active device is going to have to transfer power to allow the passive device to work. The device then sends information to the tag by modulating the RF field. This is going to be accomplished by signal modulation, which is going to then allow them to communicate. And then the device receives information from an NFC tag by sensing the modulation of the load generated by the NFC tag, which is going to use load modulation. Now, to further cement those ideas that I just presented in the previous slide, I have this diagram here that I think will really help out. We have the initiator in this case, the smartphone, the active device, which is going to send a signal modulation or an ASC modulation to the passive device, which is the target, the NFC tag. And then the NFC tag is going to use load modulation to then share the information back to the active device. This is how you can see that it uses the two different forms of modulation to send information. The passive device, remember, will not receive any information. It is only going to transfer information. Now we're going to go to the second case here, which you're going to have two different smartphones, two different active devices, and it works in pretty much the exact same way. You're going to use an ASC modulation to the other active device, the other smartphone, and the other smartphone is going to send said information back to the other smartphone. So in this case, you can see how they can both send information. They can both send and ask for information. It doesn't matter which one starts it or initiates it, but you can use it in a peer-to-peer method. And the third thing here, you can see that we have the primary active device. The initiator is going to be an NFC reader. And then you're going to do the exact same thing and use an ASC modulation to the smartphone, which in this case is the passive device. It is just there to give information. So this would be like if you were using like Apple Pay. And then it's going to use load modulation to then send that information back to the NFC reader. Now that we've gone over how NFC works, we're going to work towards the development, how companies are using this technology in their actual stuff. So we're going to start from the beginning here. Sony in 2002 patented the technology after a lot of other companies were also trying to come up with the concept of how to integrate NFC into their devices. But Sony was the first person to put a patent on it. And then in 2006, NFC developed its own tags, which were small, kind of sticker-like. These are the tags that you'll see in a lot of random stuff like shoe boxes and like soccer balls. This enables users to share data, and it also allows the active user to write new information and change information on them. It gives them a more of a validation use and or different uses that weren't before possible. More advancements surfaced, and now it's used for a lot of different things like payment methods, sharing videos, links, and even pictures. Now that we've gone over how NFC works, we're going to work towards the development, how companies are using this technology in their actual stuff. So we're going to start from the beginning here. Sony in 2002 patented the technology after a lot of other companies were also trying to come up with the concept of how to integrate NFC into their devices. But Sony was the first person to put a patent on it. And then in 2006, NFC developed its own tags, which were small, kind of sticker-like. These are the tags that you'll see in a lot of random stuff like shoe boxes and like soccer balls. This enables users to share data, and it also allows the active user to write new information and change information on them. It gives them a more of a validation use and or different uses that weren't before possible. More advancements surfaced, and now it's used for a lot of different things like payment methods, sharing videos, links, and even pictures. Now we're going to go on to some modern uses. NFC is found in pretty much every mobile device today, and it helps with a lot of different tasks, such as a mobile payment, used like Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay. It's also used for data transfer between different smartphones, such as Android Beam, where you just touch the back of your phone to another person's phone that is compatible, and it will send information. NFC is also found in credit and debit cards. Nowadays, you can just take certain credit cards or debit cards and just touch it to the card reader, and it will read said card. This is capable because of NFC. NFC is also be used by businesses such as Zipcard, which gives users the access to use a NFC card that they give you to open doors for the cars and then overall use the vehicle.
Good morning, my name is Michael Bly, and today I'm going to be covering the critique and analysis of our NFC research. So the benefits. There's a lot of benefits that come with NFC. Basically, it requires a very small amount of power. On average, it only requires about 15 milliamps of power compared to the other styles and systems such as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It's because of this, it saves on a lot of battery power. Only one NFC tag has to actively be powered for both to work. And what this essentially means is that if you have a device such as a smartphone and you have a tag that isn't actively powered, has no power source attached to it, what happens is the NFC tag inside the smartphone puts out an electromagnetic field which crosses the inductor inside of the NFC tag that's not powered and causes the coils to basically be energized. And this allows both of those to communicate with each other. It also allows for more creative uses like validation of brand names. The drawbacks to NFC is it only works in a very short range. The distance between the two devices has to be no more than 10 centimeters. And you can only use them if they're actively within that same room and that close. So the physical range of it is somewhat of a limitation because you can't do it over a great distance. For instance, if you were sitting at a restaurant table and the machine was at a waiter station, you couldn't do it. They'd have to bring a portable one to you in order for you to use it. Also, it's only a small amount of data can be transferred at one time. It's between 48 bits to 1 megabyte. Now, in terms, the average picture is about 3 megs, so you really couldn't do any of modern day pictures or very high resolution pictures, but you could still transfer one that was small enough. And of course, text data, which is a very important thing that a lot of people need to transfer back and forth, can also be done in that range. It does fall in comparison to the other systems such as with obviously Wi-Fi and with Bluetooth. So why use NFC? Well, NFC has a strong security structure. As we just previously talked about, due to its physical limitations and having to be only 10 centimeters apart, this makes it really difficult for anybody to get in there and compromise the data. To get in there and somehow change the data or steal the data, it's just very difficult to do. Also, the devices have to be told when to activate for short moments of vulnerability. So it's not like these are on 24/7. One device may be, but it doesn't have any compromising information. It's more of a receiver, whereas the other device, like your cell phone, you have to tell it. Now it's a push of a button, but you do have to tell it that you want to use NFC, it activates, completes a transaction or completes the transfer, and then that's it. NFC is also very convenient. It's very easy to use. Take out your phone, tap it against whatever the NFC tag is, whether you're making a payment or you need data information or you're transferring your information, and that's it. It's done. This is also really good for basic technology users. Everybody has that one person in their life, whether they're a grandparent or they're just somebody who didn't really grow up with technology and they just have a really tough time. This is good for them. Besides having to essentially enter their password, they don't have to do much else other than tap, and that's it. And it's a very quick process. There's no waiting around, no load times, nothing like that. The other reason is versatility. Now, a lot of people know NFC from its ability to be able to pay for stuff. You walk in with a credit card with the symbol on it, you tap it, you're paid, you're done. There's nothing, no signature, there's no checking ID, there's no pins having to be entered. But it has much more application than that. It's not just limited to a payment system. It's really in any system that requires a small amount of data to be transferred. It also makes life way more convenient. At this point in time, we use our mobile devices for just about everything. And with NFC, it pushes it a step further. You're taking a single device like your mobile phone, and it can be used on multiple different NFC systems, one after another. So it's not like just because your phone was or your mobile device was set up to make payments that it couldn't do something else, such as unlocking your front door, transferring contact information between two people, or even virtual business cards. You know, the day of having a business card and transferring it may be gone. Virtual business cards offer a lot more. You can transfer your data, you can transfer, you can put links in there to link to websites or your LinkedIn profile, things that really make things interactive and can lead to even more information that you may want to convey to the person. The use of NFC tags for many of these functions already being completed by other systems. As we talked about with the low power consumption, it saves on battery life. To do the same data transmission that a Bluetooth signal would use versus an NFC tag, you're using a fraction of power. So it will really help with that as well. Not just transferring data, but giving information when no one else is around. So let's say you're in a hospital or a hotel or even somebody's home, and they don't want to have to worry about constantly giving people out the Wi-Fi password or even access to a Bluetooth speaker or something like that, a Bluetooth device. Using an NFC tag can give you access to that, and it allows you to just walk up, tap your mobile device, and boom, you have access to the Wi-Fi. So creative ideas, and this basically just covers what's in it for the future. Where do we see this going? So just to start, and that's really what NFC is, it's just a start and the way we use it right now. Tags can be programmed in a multitude of ways, and one of those things could be to add in automated code with many functions that are handled with devices, AI devices like Google Home and Alexa. So the same thing that we do where we ask these devices to do something, an NFC tag, we can just touch with our mobile device and it can do the same thing. To the right device, it could give constant updates. So imagine going to a hospital and a patient has all types of documents. You know, a doctor could come in with a mobile device. The NFC tag could be attached to whatever the device keeping track of the person's vital signs and whatever else they're keeping track of, and it could constantly and instantly give them an update on that. These type of things are also could be used on people as far as with low blood sugar or other various things that you want to constantly keep an eye on, that you want to be able to have instant access to that type of information for people's health. It's something that can be very useful. Along with that, we have gyms. So with the newer gyms adopting this equipment with NFCs, they could have the technology that goes with it, and in pairing with the technology on your phone, you could do a workout on one piece of equipment that would keep certain stats, certain vitals, take that thing and bring it with you to the next piece of equipment that will also adapt to the information you've given it and tailor it so that it works for you. It also could lead to exclusive content. So imagine being in a line at a place like Disney World, and there are NFCs scattered throughout the place. Scanning those with your mobile device could allow you to have access to maybe an application, or maybe even give you constant updates on the length of the line. From this point, how far is it to the front? These are the type of things that really embodies NFC, and it breaks down to the base of technology, which is the transfer of data, giving or receiving data that allows you to make decisions or allows you to do stuff and move on. And it's with that, I think, that NFC will push how we do things, almost coming full circle, allowing us to do the physical things in a digital way. That covers the critique and analysis. I'm going to pass it off to James Brady, who's going to finish up with our conclusion and our final thoughts. Thank you.
Final thoughts. NFC technology is considered to be the new age of RFID. This technology is said to revolutionize industries such as the payment of items. This growing technological advancement is also said to be one of the most secure with the highest product authentication. With tapping to pair, embedded experiences within objects, and exclusive content just by walking up to something, the future seems very bright for this technology and sci-fi lovers, respectfully.